Quick, tweet that. So nice to see you at this hour. I know this is the end of the day and people are tired, and appreciate your coming to this session. What we want to do is, because it's a smaller crowd, make it a little more round table-like as opposed to panelist type. So I'm going to ask, I know this is like law school, people like to sit in the back of row, have a chance to leave. It's okay if you have to leave, but we're really asking everybody to come up to these front two rows so we can really just talk to each other. So if you... Right, no, there won't be. I don't have like a seating chart with your names and whatever. But really, I'm going to ask everybody, because we can't, we really need to have a conversation, I think, and I think it's great. So we're going to ask you to just move in and be a little bit cozy. And if you can just come in, we're going to sit up close because we're a smaller group, so we can make it a little more round table-ish. And then anybody who comes late and sits in the back, we're just going to, give them dirty looks and they'll feel bad. So this is great. Thank you. Excellent. We're coming in close just to have more conversation. And this way, because this way we'll also get to know you as well. Because we think that this is a really important topic. And the reason we do, maybe it'll help to know who I am and why I feel passionately about this, and I think when you hear the panelists, you'll find out why they do as well. So my name is Marcia Levy, and I'm the executive director of an organization called Pro Bono Partnership. And what we do is we provide free transactional legal services to nonprofits in 3 states in the United States. Come on in close. This is great. Okay, we're making it cozy. So the way we do that, the way we provide free transactional legal services is, first, our clients are all NGOs. We don't represent individuals. We don't represent businesses. We represent NGOs, or nonprofits as they're called in the United States. And we do that in 3 states, in New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey, but we also have affiliates in Atlanta, Georgia, and Cincinnati, Ohio. We have lawyers on staff, so I call ourselves a clearinghouse plus. So we don't just make matches, but we actually have attorneys who carefully talk to the nonprofits, find out what their legal needs are, and then when we assess what the legal issue is, we then turn to our partners who are lawyers, in-house legal departments in corporations, so lawyers in-house in corporations, and also lawyers in law firms. But the interesting thing is that makes us very unique, actually. Even in the United States, we're unique. There's only really 2 organizations that do exactly our model, is that we only work on transactional work. So this workshop is going to be all about transactional pro bono, which in the loosest sense you can think of as not litigation. All right? If it's litigation, if our nonprofit is being sued, if they're bringing a lawsuit, we can't help them. We might tell them who else they might call, but we cannot help them. But anything else, if they come to us and they don't even exist yet, and they want to become incorporated, as you would call it in the United States, as a nonprofit and get 501c3 status, we can help them with that. If they want their bylaws to be reviewed or any other issues of governance, or they have questions about their board, then we help them with that. If they have an intellectual property issue, maybe a licensing question or something about their website, we can get them intellectual property lawyers who will help them. If they have a contract, a real estate issue, a labor and employment issue, which is a lot of what our nonprofits deal with, we can get them lawyers from in-house legal departments and from law firms to help them. So I would like everybody else to introduce themselves so you can hear what they do within this realm, and then we'll delve more deeply into what are some of the legal needs that nonprofits have and how law firms and in-house legal departments can help them, some of the models that we use in order to be able to utilize the best skills of the lawyers working with us, but also recognizing the limitations they may have in providing pro bono, some of the challenges, and some of our recommendations. And one of the things that we hope, and we're excited about this group and why we're bringing you in close, is that we really want to interact with you and hear what you're doing. And if you're not, and you haven't thought about it, but you think it's a good idea, what we can do to help you be able to formulate some kind of program in your own countries that would model the idea of using lawyers with transactional skills to help nonprofits. And we'll even talk about social impact and small businesses, because that's some of the areas in which transactional pro bono is growing. So that with that thought, I'm going to start at the very end and ask each of our panelists, and I'll pass this down, although if I could get the other mic too, that would be great. And the reason we're using microphones is we were told that these are not picking up so well when these programs are being audio taped, and so we're using microphones.
Okay. My name is Anna Collignon. I'm a lawyer from the Netherlands. I work at a Dutch law firm called Stibbe. In the Netherlands, that's quite a big law firm. And we have a pro bono practice that has been instituted for the whole firm for over 15 years ago. I work for the firm for 10 years as a lawyer. And in that 10 years, I've been part of our pro bono committee that selects cases to do pro bono. And I have also handled, as a lawyer, several pro bono cases. And I must say that most of the cases I did were litigation cases, so that's different from the introduction Marcia gave. And perhaps that's inherent to our pro bono selection criteria. For instance, if we handle a case pro bono, there must be a certain social significance, or this case must set a legal precedent. So we feel very strongly as a firm for those criteria. And just a very short example, a case I did for several human rights and women rights organizations all the way up to the Supreme Court and the European Court of Human Rights, was about the right for women to stand for election. But as a firm, we also do transactional firm. As said, we were a Dutch law firm. We also have quite a big corporate division. And we can also do other work than litigation. But we still select pro bono work per case and not per NGO. So the NGO should apply for a specific pro bono case, for a specific pro bono assistance, and then we will review the application based on our criteria. An example of the work we have done more transactional is the work for an arts and culture foundation. We have advocated for new legislation to protect art in the Netherlands. But we also give tax advices to NGOs, and our civil law notaries also help set up new foundations, as Marcia said as well. So as a firm, we do transactional work. I will tell you later about the challenges we come across. But we're also eager to learn from the rest of the panel and also from the audience how we can improve our pro bono transactional work and perhaps even collaborate with others. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Anna. I'm John Sander. I'm a partner in the New York office of Jackson Lewis PC, which is a large labor and employment firm in the U.S., and I'm also a member of our pro bono committee. Our program is both transactional and litigation oriented. And before that, in my former life, I was in-house for 17 years with Shearing Plow and Merck, after we merged with Merck, so two large pharmaceutical companies. And I actually set up a transactional pro bono program, the first program we had. And I don't know if Marcia even knows this, but that is the reason why Pro Bono Partnership was expanded to New Jersey originally to service our program. And then before that, I was a litigator, so I've also done a lot of litigation pro bono, but I'm looking forward to talking with you all about some of the pros and cons of setting up each program and some of the mistakes that we made along the way and some of the things that really worked well for us.
Thank you. And my name is Ana Higuera, and first I would like to know which one of you comes from law firms, which come from NGOs, public institutions. I don't know, maybe we can first start by law firms. More or less, to have an idea of what. in-house counsels, NGOs, others? Okay, thank you very much. Guys, I think it will be more challenging to share our experience in that way. I'm working for the Fernando Pumbaa Foundation. It was founded by the Spanish lawyer Fernando Pumbaa, that was president of the ABI some years ago, and by the law firm Gomez Acebo and Pumbaa. And we engage lawyers against poverty, and one of the ways in which we do that is by our clearinghouse plus, as Marcia is saying, because we also have lawyers in our staff that are selecting the cases and the opportunities, and we are filtering the cases on pro bono. And I think we are doing similar things as others, as I'm saying. Of course, we provide advice on employment, IP, incorporation, bylaws, taxes. These are the usual problems of any NGO, I suppose, in almost all countries. So I think our challenges probably are quite similar in all places. What we have been done in the last years is to try to share our knowledge with other NGOs. For example, designing projects with the Madrid and Barcelona Bar Association to provide the knowledge of our pro bono lawyers to other NGOs with the usual problems they are facing in their advice to NGOs on taxes, on employment, or IP, that I think are the most usual problems now on transactional. And I think it's very useful. And also, one of the key issues we have identified is our cooperation with the universities. We have created our own legal clinic with a university in Spain, and it is an online clinic in which students start from the first year working in pro bono cases, supervised by professors, of course, and lawyers. And one of the most important and most interesting issue for them is transactional pro bono for NGOs. We have identified that interest in all students when we analyze our work with them. And this is the fair I want to share with you.
Hi everyone, my name's Amanda Andreazza. I'm in-house counsel for GE, for General Electric. I'm based in Florence, here in Italy. It's great to see some other in-house counsel here, because it's been my experience, it can be a challenge for us to get involved in pro bono or to know where to start. So I've been with GE in Florence for 3 years. When I started, there wasn't, GE as a company has a very strong tradition of doing pro bono work. Globally, we do a lot of work. We do work with Marsha in the US, for example. In Italy, I found there really wasn't a program when I started as such. We have a team of about 15 lawyers in Florence who are a mix. So there's Italian lawyers and then, people like me, foreigners, sort of other Australians, two Australians in our legal team in Florence, which is strange. French, Belgian, it's a bit of a mix. So people were doing a bit of sort of ad hoc work, if you like, that they would probably call pro bono, but there was no program. So I've been trying with the team to set that up, and we have found it effective working with a local university and also with other law firms, so partnering with them. The issues we've dealt with so far, there is someone on the litigation side. Transactionally is similar to the other panelists, so tax, IP, and we have actual tax lawyer, we have a IP counsel in our team, so they're dedicated specialists that can advise, and then corporate governance type issues. So it has been a different experience. I spent most of my legal career at a big law firm in Australia, in Sydney, where there was a big structure, a pro bono culture, a pro bono program, And so it has been kind of a very different environment. So we'll talk about some of those, the experience and the challenges.
Thank you. So just want to delve a little more deeply into some of the issues that were raised. We talked about some of the legal needs that are facing nonprofits or NGOs, and I heard identified first starting up the organization, so startup issues, corporate governance, tax advice, IP, contracts. So it really involves a number of different transactional legal skills. Just for the NGOs in the audience, are there other legal issues that you think NGOs are facing, from a transactional perspective, or does that cover it for the most part? I'm gonna do the microphone for the audience too, so we'll keep one and you have one. And just identify yourself if you don't mind.
Sure. So my name is Garth Venkies. I'm joining PillNet to succeed Ed Rakosh. But I'm coming in from another organization called the International Senior Lawyers Project, which has used transactional lawyering not just to help NGOs sort of with their organizational issues, but their assistance to clients, including least developed country governments, for example, negotiating mining contracts. And so, I think, I'm sure this comes up, but I think when we think about transactional lawyering, most of the ways in which lawyers in the US, for example, practice their day-to-day practice is transactional lawyering. Very little is litigation. And yet, when we do pro bono, we tend to do mostly litigation. And I think there's a huge unserved need of providing transactional assistance, but not just to the NGOs themselves. They need to become, first, more aware and better consumers of it, but ultimately they need to be helping their clients to make use of transactional assistance. So that's sort of the additional frontier that I hope we will begin to explore.
Okay. And that's a wonderful point, and it really does expand the opportunities, and we can talk about that in a few minutes for transactional pro bono, because I think that the history has been more on helping the nonprofit as opposed to the work that the nonprofit is doing. So I'll just turn to, John, you've had the opportunity to both create a pro bono program in the transactional sphere. You're on, the board of an organization that does transactional work. Can you talk a little bit more about, how those programs get established? What are some of the key ingredients that can make them successful?
Great, thanks. And Marcia, I would have to say that my entry into transactional pro bono was kind of accidental, because when I first went in-house, my experience was in litigation-oriented pro bono, as really was the dominant paradigm in the United States at that point. But the general counsel of my company wanted to create a pro bono program, so I started walking around to in-house lawyers and trying to find out what they were interested in and stir up some interest in this program. And what I learned very quickly was that in-house lawyers were very different from outside counsel. They were older, they were more established in their careers, they were not looking to get court experience, they were not looking to develop clients. So that you needed a different set of issues to motivate them. And so that, in my own mind, created the need to develop some opportunities that were more transactional in nature. And one of the things I did, which I suggest to everybody, is to, before you plunge into a program, is to do some research, because you generally will find someone else had your brilliant idea before you did. And that's exactly what I found, because I had this great idea that we would supply legal services to nonprofit corporations in the U.S., and then I started asking around and doing some research and found there was an organization that was already doing that, although not in my geographic area. So that was really the way that in my background that this began. And one of the first things I did, and I recommend this to anybody, was to before you open up a pro bono program to a large group of people is to do a survey and find out what people are interested in, because if you go to them with a particular project or a particular area, you will inevitably find that some people are very interested in that, but many are not. Many are not moved by it. And so one of the best things I think that we did was have a survey. It developed a feeling of participation among people. We got a number of ideas, a number of things that I never would have thought of doing, and that's what developed a menu of choices that we then presented to people, but all in the non-litigation area. And eventually we got about half of our people participating in this. So I think the survey was very important. I think the other part of it, which was very important for us, was getting some high-level buy-in, because we would like to think that everyone is motivated by altruism and charity and compassion for their fellow man, and somebody on one of the panels this morning said that warm feeling inside. But my experience has been that's never enough, that you also need to appeal to some enlightened self-interest in order to get a large number of people to participate if you want to get more than a handful. And one part of that is having people think that their organization really approves of this and cares about it. So in the corporation, it's your general counsel. In your law firm, it's your managing partner or your management committee. And it helps if the best is if they will actually take on a matter themselves, which I've actually had. My general counsel did that, and one of the senior partners in my law firm has done that. But if they can't do that, at least if they can send out an email, if they can speak at a town hall, if they can indicate to people that this is something that we really approve of, and if it occasionally takes you away from your paying matters or in the in-house setting, your client matters, somebody will cover for you, or we will understand that. If you don't have that, you really have a difficult time, and particularly in a corporation, because corporations really do function in almost a military way, and if the general does not is not interested in you taking that hill, very few people are going to do that. And one other thing, or a couple of other things I would mention, is to have some kind of relationship with a provider or a source of steady pro bono projects. The one thing that I encountered before we got involved with pro bono partnership is I would finally coax someone into doing a pro bono project, and they would come forward very shyly and say, I'm ready to do a pro bono project. And I had nothing for them. They did not know what they wanted to do, and I had nothing for them. So it's important to have a steady, a steady supply of opportunities for people. One other thing that we did was we had a reward mechanism. Again, we would love people to do this because it's the right thing to do, but it never hurts to have a prize, an award, give somebody recognition at a social event. Some companies even make it part of performance management, which I would think is probably not common outside the United States, and even in the United States, it's relatively uncommon to do that. But there are companies that actually consider pro bono work as a positive in your work evaluation. And then the last thing, and I resisted this for a long time because I think that's what lawyers do, which is we hate metrics. Once you keep score, it just seems to take the fun out of everything. But it really does help, and that's particularly true in a corporation, but I think it's true in a law firm too, which is if we measure it, then we work a little harder to achieve it and to improve, and we know where we're falling down. So I don't think you need an elaborate set of metrics, but something that measures the number of volunteers that you have, the number of matters that you have, the areas that they're in, how many hours people are putting in, I think is really essential. Yep.
I can just add to that, because you were talking about enthusiast people, but it shouldn't also be a disadvantage to do pro bono work, because I work at a law firm, and there were lawyers in here, so everybody knows where there are billable hours, and you should make a certain amount of billable hours. And in our firm, pro bono hours also count as billable hours. So when you have your evaluation and you have to account for your hours, you do not see a difference between pro bono and billable. There's not a limit per person. No, we do have a limit per pro bono hours for the whole firm per year. And one of the challenges we face is that we have some people who do a lot of pro bono work, and we want to engage more of the lawyers in our firm, but there's no limit on pro bono work. But in practice, you will find your way, and you'll talk to that with the partner you work for. So that's fine. Yeah.
I think we face almost all similar challenges, and maybe I can share some of our experience to try to do things well. I think we should define roles and expectations. This is what we have to do. And one of our experiences is to work with another foundations in certain projects. For example, we acted as pro bono partners for a Spanish foundation, the Botín Foundation, in a project in which they award a project that was a collaboration of several NGOs to develop a project for creating employment in Spain. And they were obliged to work together to design that project. And once defined, we acted as pro bono lawyers in the ecosystem for such award. The role of each one was clearly defined, and the expectations of the NGOs were clear, and the expectation of the lawyers, the time they were going to devote to that matter, and the way in which it was going to be measured also was clear from the very beginning. And maybe I share with John the opinion that is crucial to make the survey and to study all the situation. But once you start working, you also see which kind of projects are successful and which are not. And maybe with the example is the way in which we also run.
Yeah, I would reiterate what the other panelists have said. I think speaking from an in-house perspective, it's quite true about a little bit military-ish. I know when I first started trying to drum up, some passion for pro bono, it was kind of, it was going along okay. And then suddenly our general counsel, like the big super general counsel, sitting in the US, must have spoken to his direct reports that pro bono is on the agenda, something he really cares about. And then suddenly that just started flowing down. And then, it was, and so I was seeing that there were some, of the kind of senior leaders who genuinely care about doing pro bono work, and it's something that, they do themselves, they care about it, and others that don't really, but it was suddenly on their agenda. My philosophy is I don't really care as long as it's on the agenda. I mean, it's just, it's good. But once that was there, then people in the team, I got more people kind of interested. So it's just the way it works. And I think more so in-house because, sorry, did you have a, okay. I think more so in-house because the resource, we're lean, a lot of in-house teams are very lean on the ground, so you don't have the same resources that you would have in a law firm. So I think doing a survey is definitely good because then you see what people are genuinely interested in. And from my colleagues, it's been, I don't have a lot of time, but what can I do that's where I'm going to see the impact. It's more about the impact than just drumming up hours of work because there aren't that many hours, unfortunately. The other thing we've tried to do is also to tie it, for us, rather than a law firm having clients as such. Our clients are our customers. So for the business I work for, we sell equipment, largely, and services. And so it was also identifying what are those customers doing in this space. And for us, I work in oil and gas, so for them it's often corporate responsibility and sustainability in some very quirky jurisdictions all around the world. So identifying a customer and then saying to my general counsel, hey, this customer's doing something on corporate responsibility, why don't we have that conversation? And then it became not only maybe something that we could do, but it also made business sense. So it's just, being practical but that's been kind of some things that have helped to drive the program. But we're still, I guess, in early stages, so I'm keen to also hear from the audience how they've managed, especially from an in-house perspective.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Marieke Spee. I'm a colleague of Anna, actually, also in the law firm Stibbe. And you actually answered a part of my question. I was just wondering whether you find that as an in-house counsel, you face a little bit more problems on getting the pro bono out in the organization, not only on the ground for like the operational levels, but also up in the scale, and what you find that you would need other than what you just described on getting that flowing. But I just think that you might have answered that question like mainly.
Well, I'll give an example, and I would love to hear actually from, other people who are doing transactional pro bono. But one thing that we do is we recognize that sometimes in-house legal departments are either smaller or it's only going to be one person maybe who could work on a matter, and they get worried that, well, if I get busy with something else, then I have this pro bono matter, and how am I going to deal with it? Whereas in contrast, what we find in the United States is if a law firm takes a matter, there might be 2 or 3 people working on it. So if somebody gets busy, somebody else is available. So what we've done with our in-house partners is that we offer one day, and there was actually a session today, I didn't have a chance to go to it, but on kind of one-day pro bono opportunities. And they can be very varied. So one example, we just did one where we invited nonprofits in our community who had not worked with us before to come and have what we called a nonprofit health check. And we had about a 3 or 4 page list in different areas relating to governance and, HR and, contracts and intellectual property. And we had lawyers from an in-house legal department, and actually they weren't so small, but they had not worked with us before, so this was their introduction. So 30 of them showed up, and we actually did it as part of they were having a retreat, and so this became a sort of a day of service in their retreat. And we had round tables. We had 9 NGOs sit at one at each table, and they each had like 3 or 4 lawyers with them who had this health check, who went through for about 2 hours and asked them questions. And at the end of it, that in-house department was not required to take the matter that they identified. Like, they would hand the sheet back to us and say, okay, X nonprofit has these issues that we think they need to take a look at more closely. What we then did is we then did our clearinghouse thing. We took that matter back. We said, thank you for this great day. And then we put it out. We have something called voluntary opportunities. We send out every other week to any lawyer who signed up to do pro bono with us. And it describes the organization, the legal issue, so you can look down the side and see, is it contract, is it real estate, is it intellectual property, and what state it's in, because we do work in 3 states. And so we then took those matters and we put it out there. So now those nonprofits are going to get actual legal representation. And it was great. Everybody was so happy, and a number of the nonprofits felt so privileged to just have this opportunity to sit down and take 2 hours to just talk about themselves instead of all the great work that they do for others, just to make sure they were healthy. And the lawyers who worked with them were so happy to be able to spend, a couple of hours doing good. And some of those lawyers said, we wouldn't mind taking that matter. When you write it up, we might take it back because we really now have connected with this nonprofit and we want to help them. So that's one way. And I just wonder, from other people in the audience or the panel, are there other ways in which you can do this kind of pro bono without, the sort of traditional case from beginning to end?
Sure. While we're moving the microphone, I'll just add one point to what Marcia said, which is when I talk to in-house people, when I was doing that program in-house, one of the biggest concerns that they had was time, because the in-house person is in a special position that none of us outside quite can appreciate, because the in-house person gets a call from someone in the company, and the one thing no one ever says is, do you have time to do X? It never happens. It's just do X. And so the in-house person is very often afraid that they will be in the middle of a pro bono project when some urgent matter comes from a high-up person in the company, and then they're in a bind that they cannot get out of. On the other hand, one of the attractions for outside counsel is the ability to work with clients or potential clients on matters. So one of the most effective methods that we had was to team up an in-house counsel and an outside counsel on a project, and it doesn't mean that they both even ended up working on it, but the in-house person had the assurance that they were covered if they got into a difficult scheduling problem. And the outside counsel, believe me, they're fighting to do this. One of the things when we set up our program, we wondered if outside counsel would be interested in transactional pro bono, and I think Marcia will attest. They can't wait to do it. We could get our organization, which is geared to present opportunities for in-house counsel, but I have no doubt we could fill all of our volunteer needs and more with outside counsel, because they're very anxious to get involved in this. So I'm sorry. Do we?
Hi. God, I hate microphones. I'm a European pro bono manager from a US law firm, but I very recently just started. One of the things I've been doing is auditing all of our European offices to find out, especially what the non-engaged transactional lawyers wanted to do. We've been using clearinghouses for a while to get sort of ad hoc transactional, sort of health check style work, but they weren't really feeling engaged in it. And now that I've talked to them, the reason is because it was ad hoc. And now what I've started to do is actually to form permanent partnerships with social enterprises and NGOs. And I'm finding the transactional lawyers are much, much more engaged in that. It feels much more fulfilling to build almost like a permanent client relationship, which I think you would get that fulfillment from doing a sort of litigation style case, but from doing ad hoc transactional advice, you don't always get it. But now that we're building actual partnerships that are ongoing with NGOs, I'm getting much, much more positive feedback, and now our corporate team is like the busiest for pro bono, so it's been quite successful. So I'm a US law firm called Sherman & Sterling, which Sarah Lynn is our global director in New York, and I've just started trying to get Europe to do a little bit more.
Okay, that's great. Because, just to say in answer to that, I think for law firms it is different. And it doesn't mean it can't be. We have a lot of in-house lawyers who take on full engagements, a lot of them who do. And so that the idea of the one day is one way to start the relationship, but also where people say, we'd love to do something, but we can't do beyond that. But a lot of in-house counsel want to do more, but also law firm transactional lawyers. I mean, I always tell the story. I was actually the pro bono counsel at Sullivan and Cromwell for 4 years, and I created the position. And when I got to the firm, I came from a litigation background, and my very first day there, I said to the partner who was in charge of the pro bono program, what would you like me to focus on? And he said, transactional. And I nodded, and I went back to my office, and I called a friend, and I said, what's a transaction? Because I had never done it. I was a litigator. So I had no idea what he was talking about. But then as I delved more deeply, what I saw was that our transactional lawyers were doing things that felt really uncomfortable to them, like they were doing asylum matters, or they might be going in and doing a landlord-tenant case, and they really felt uncomfortable. That was didn't make them feel good. They felt like, I'm not good enough, maybe I'm not doing a good job. And as soon as we started to create opportunities for them to use their skills, they felt so much better. And they developed relationships with the, as you're saying, with their organizations. In fact, often what happens, what we see happens, is the organization will say, is it okay for me to ask that lawyer who helped us to be on our board, or to be on an advisory committee, or to engage more with our organization because we really love them, and oftentimes that winds up coming out of the relationship as a longer term, you know, interaction. We just need to pass the microphone back.
I'm just so glad that you brought that up. My name is Karen Sample, and I am the Chief Legal Officer for a conglomerate in Dubai. And I'm trying to put together a pro bono program for our department because our lawyers and paralegals are dying to do something as a team. But the only pro bono program that I can find is one through what's called the DIFC Courts, which is a Dubai International Financial Center. And it's all about, you know, things we don't know anything about. It's the DIFC law, and we could pick it up, but you know, it's very uncomfortable, and so we're trying to, I don't know, we're looking for ideas. We're trying to maybe partner with a law firm, but we're really lost. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that's the thing. We're corporate lawyers. We don't kind of know what we're doing.
Well, I wonder from the, you know, we had an idea over here of some of the bigger kinds of matters that might, but you're raising your hand. Are there ideas from the audience, or from the, you know, particularly the NGO perspective on how lawyers who have transactional skills can engage with you? And I don't know where the microphone is, but if we can pass it, we have somebody here, and then there. So 1, 2, 3.
I start?
Well, I had her starting because she raised first.
Hi, my name is Ines. I'm not sure whether I'm the only person here, but I could actually speak with 3 different hats. Because I've been an in-house lawyer. I'm currently a law firm lawyer, and I've also been volunteering with an NGO for a very, very long time. So I do have the 3 hats, and I can see the 3 different perspectives. And I have to say that when I moved from my first law firm to the in-house position, one of the reasons that made me go back to a law firm was the fact that I missed pro bono. Because it is true that as an in-house you have a lot less opportunities to engage in pro bono. You don't get the chances. You can't really, you don't know where to get pro bono clients. You don't necessarily have the support of your hierarchy to engage in long-term projects. So it gets kind of difficult. And one of the things I like in my current law firm, which is DLA, is that we do partner with our clients for pro bono projects. And Amanda is nodding, but because we actually team up regularly with GE for some of it. It is difficult also sometimes to say, well, I'm going to do transactional work. Well, I mean, when you look at pro bono work, you can do you can do litigation all the time, but we are not litigators. I mean, I'm a real estate lawyer. I don't know anything about litigation. And for my NGO, I had to take up the subject of violence against women, which was something I knew nothing about. And I had to write a report on the whole on how the whole legal system worked for 6 different countries. So it forced me to learn a lot. It expands your horizons a lot, and it's really interesting. But if you're trying to focus on your actual skills, it gets a bit difficult if you're trying to do human rights work, because that's not your core. If you try to do transactional work, you need the right set of NGOs to actually be able to deliver, because if you want to build a long-term permanent relationship with an NGO based on your real estate skills, that's never going to happen. Unless you work for a natural conservation NGO or something like that. But if you focus on more humane concerns, it's not really the core issues either. So one other thing that I do like about TLA is that one of the core kind of projects that we take on is legal education. And that is the sort of project where it becomes much easier to team up with our clients to go and deliver legal education somewhere. For several years, we've been going to African universities in Tanzania, in Zambia. We go there for a week, maybe, and deliver a whole program of legal drafting, legal negotiating skills for the students there. And there we can, there will be a lot of people involved in those kind of projects, developing the materials, and then people who need to go and travel there and stay there for a week to deliver the materials to the students. So there's a lot of things that can happen, and there's a lot of things that can be done. And it's only a matter of finding the right fit, really.
Well, hello, my name is Carmen Pumbaa. I'm a colleague of Ana, so from Spain. I just wanted to raise the subject of helping out NGOs on transparency and money laundering. This is something that we've been asked by many NGOs lately, especially after the new Transparency Act has been passed through in Spain, but this is something which is common in many jurisdictions as well. This is something that the NGOs really need, assistance on transparency and money laundering, especially if they want to get more funds. So this is something which is, has been asked more and more, and where we have found good collaborations with in-house lawyers, because in-house lawyers tend to know a lot about money laundering and transparency because they are much more... No, because you have lots of compliance and all these things related with the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, and especially if you're American. So this is another part where for transactional pro bono is a very good matter, and something that NGOs sometimes don't realize they actually need this advice, but it's very valuable for them when they have actually got it. And a very wide variety of professionals can actually provide this pro bono service.
Has anyone on the panel done anything like that, or in the audience, have you done?
We have done a lot, yes.
Hi, my name is Carl Fleming. I'm with Aiken Gump. I'm on the International Pro Bono Committee, which is kind of newly formed, and one of my mandates was to help get more transactional work, because I'm a transactional attorney, but I also have a background in development in Africa with the U.S. government. So I'm always on the lookout for people who want to have in-house lawyers to partner up, because what we've done so far is partnered with the U.S. government for a Power Africa initiative, which is the purpose of that is to get private sector involvement as we reform governments in Africa with kind of directly heads of state there to work on opening up environments to get it attractive for private investor transactions to take place, mostly power purchase agreements and things like that. And they keep asking us, can you bring more people to the table to give like a commercial kind of filter to some of these programs? Because a lot of times U.S. government programs are given by U.S. government people that aren't doing transactions in the private sector, and it's not exactly useful. So they're constantly looking for people to come in, say this is what a private investment would have to have on the table. And we've ended up doing a lot of trainings in Nigeria and Ghana and Kenya for the government plus the local private sector investors, and just to kind of hash out, put things on the table, and come up with the guidelines and power purchase agreement, like annotated things for some of these governments that haven't done a lot of that kind of work. So that's just kind of one of the examples that we try to think creatively, because to try and pair people with transactions all the time is difficult, but this is an ongoing endeavor that people are kind of brought in. There's a lot of private sector people that contribute to it.
Thank you for that. You know, one thing before we move to the next question or comment is that we have only talked about the NGO sector as a place for transactional pro bono, but one of the things, for example, a challenge my organization faces is should we grow into other sectors like social impact investing, for example, where again transactional lawyers, there would be transactional lawyers who would have a lot of expertise, or one of the pilot programs that we've been trying is that we represent a nonprofit that represents micro entrepreneurs. So they represent small business people who are trying to create businesses in communities that are really underserved in terms of business, that are economically deprived. They're people who may wind up making a lot of money. They're not nonprofits, but yet they're helping the community by going in someplace where there isn't a lot of business, developing business, employing people, and so it's really critical that they survive. And so we've been doing this experiment of seeing whether some of our corporate and law firm partners are willing to help not only the nonprofit who's created this program, but also the entrepreneurs who work with them. And we've formed a partnership in which we're doing that, including using a law school clinic at NYU Law School. Students, not in the clinic, I shouldn't say clinic, it's really a student-run project where students are helping out with these entrepreneurs by doing sort of like a know your rights kind of thing. And it's this wonderful collaboration, but again, it's broadening the reach beyond nonprofits, but saying even those that are making a difference in their communities and in economic development, these are good folks to be helping, and at the same time, we're again enlisting the pro bono support of law firms and in-house legal departments. So we have about 1 minute left because, you know, we're going a little bit later because we got 10 minutes. So my friends from Lisbon.
Hello, I am from Lisbon. I have a question for the table and a suggestion for your question. The question for the table is whether the in-house counsel teams, when they use and if they use clearinghouse, would they accept the possibility of being considered as a member, a full member, and with the responsibilities, namely paying an yearly fee? Because I was just speaking with one of our colleague clearinghouses, and in the Netherlands, he was saying that he had been obliged to maintain, to restrict the group of law firms that would be their members, because to guarantee a certain flow of work. And in relation to these worries, because if you partner with the clearinghouse and if you somehow fund them, they will find you the perfect project, for sure. And I'm having an example now in Portugal, which is still going on, suggested by a law firm, which was that most of our individual cases were personal insolvencies. And the personal insolvencies, we found out, were being caused by something unbelievable, which was people would buy their mobile phones. They would choose a certain career for the mobile phones. At a certain point, after losing their jobs, losing their houses, they would disconnect the mobile phone. And they were within the period of, I don't know how you call it, period of fidelization. So they would, according to the agreements with the small letters that nobody reads, and not even as lawyers, they would be obliged to be in the career for 2 years. And we had even an old lady that had a debt of 20,000 euros. That's the dimension that it gets, because the daily fines for not finishing the agreements was like 200 euros a day, and the interest and so on. And so we spoke with our partner law firms and saying this is a case we need strategic litigation, because if we have to discuss every other case of person insolvencies due to mobile phone users, it will be a nightmare. And they said, well, we represent one of the mobile phone companies, so we cannot help you. And they made a suggestion: why don't you partner with the academic and prepare an in-house counsel, even they introduce us to the in-house counsel of the mobile carrier, and you will prepare a paper that will be able to, legal theory, create a legal theory for exceptional cases in which, due to extreme poverty, they will not be able to pay the fines and so on. And this is going on. So we are in-house counsel team is helping with soft policy. So usually the in-house counsel are great in regulatory, they are great in money laundering, but they are also great in regulatory issues. Mm-hmm. So each in-house counsel team of every other big or small company will have a specialization, a great one. So you will have, I don't know what's your company? Property development. You probably have some landlord issues, or you will somewhere along the line, every in-house counsel team faces issues which are recurrent and which are litigation prone. And so you may be able to find a way to bring to your boss, which is a difficult and very fine balance issue, to bring to your boss, well, I don't think that ethically we are doing the best thing we can in this specific issue. We are having a lot of litigation because of this. We are spending a lot of money in litigation. So my suggestion, our suggestion would be, maybe would you consider this white paper on soft policy regulatory to avoid strategic litigation? So we are now having, this is how it's going on. The in-house counsel team is saying to their boss, saying, we are now having an NGO, a clearinghouse that has found lawyers which are willing to sue this company until the last minute, breath. So we can avoid the strategic litigation by making some changes, or we can just pretend nothing is going on.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm getting like a massive 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute, which means that 5 minutes have gone by. So I think I have to wrap this up, although we did start a little bit late. I'm just going to ask, did the panelists, does anyone have one last word anyone wants to say from what you heard?
I would just say that it's clear. I think we should be flexible and innovative because there are many needs, and I think we should face each one as a partner in this sector. We as a clearinghouse, in-house counsels, and I think there's room for many things to do. And being flexible and innovative, I think we can do lots of things.
I think we have to wrap up because I see a standing delegation in the back, so I think this must be the room. But I do want to say this. I'm going to get the last word here. I so appreciate everybody coming and your ideas, and I think we only hit the tip of the iceberg, and it would be nice to be in touch with each other as we delve down deeper. But what's so exciting is that transactional skills are so useful in the realm of pro bono, and I think that's been neglected for some years. So it's wonderful that we're really focusing on that, both to help nonprofits, to help the clients they help, to help small businesses, but to also utilize our skills in a way that's impactful. So I wish everybody great luck in this, but keep in touch and let's keep together.